that obviously there's some outside sources that always give information on how our guys played, but from our office, from the Smith Center, our offensive MVPs this past weekend, two receivers, Pat Bryant and Casey Washington. I thought those guys played a lot of good football here, but those two guys in particular, obviously the Casey with the big play at the end, with Pat with 2 touchdowns, and then also three guys on offense. We also gave it to Luke. Just thought, a first-time quarterback, starting the game the way he did, the first completion, the second completion, the third completion, his demeanor, some of the things he did with his legs, really the composure to go out on that last series. There was no anxiety in him. It was just kind of, let's go out and roll and see what happens. I thought that was really good. Defensively, another great story of a new safety coming in and doing great things. Miles Scott, we moved him in the spring, and a lot has been said about that. I just thought he, handled the moment really well. Obviously, that one play, a huge factor in the game, but he made so many other plays, just really good awareness, common sense, demeanor, cutoff, skill, down in the box to play the quarterback. Just a really, really good opening game for him. I think he's going to be a very good football player here for a long time. And then special teams gave it obviously to Caleb. I thought, guy that's put in a lot of football, came back for an extra bonus senior year, a guy that, a year ago I talked to him about, hey, I'm going to give you a chance to win all 3 phases. Did a good job of that, but really the last 2 weeks kicked the ball extremely well in practice, both as field goal and kickoff. Did a really nice job, and then to have a game-winning walk-off. Well, there was one more play, I guess, but really just an exceptional game. And then we also gave it to Mac Resetich, kind of he only had a limited number of plays, but he had on kickoff coverage, he had 3 plays and 2 tackles, right? So like that batting percentage speaks very well. Another good example, I think, young talent. Mac, if I'm not mistaken, he was going to play junior college baseball before we offered the opportunity to come and play football, and has proven to be a very dynamic player, a lot of speed, a lot of ability, best hairstyle by far in the current era that we live in, and just a fun kid in the program. So our look team guys, defensive look going against our offense, Mason Moragan, who actually traveled with us, who was on the verge of playing, has been super impressive in camp. We actually recruited him as a defensive end, and we're playing him as an outside backer, just really rangy, long, athletic, does exactly what we ask him to do, really enjoys the game, super excited about where he is, and could play for us this week as well. Our offensive look, our 2 quarterbacks that gave us looks all camp, Cal Swanson and Jacob Huber, those 2 guys really did a good job of impersonating number 7, but 7 did a pretty good job impersonating himself on Saturday, as we all know. But those guys really gave us a look through camp. And then our special teams look team guy, Mike Manning, just a guy that just continues to be super impressive every day in our practice. He played for us, or my guess is he'll play for us again this year. A couple things on injuries. Guys injured in the game. T. Strain has got to pass concussion protocol, but is in that path. He definitely is progressing in the right direction. Isaiah Adams is all the X-rays, MRIs were negative, and really like the progress he's made in the last 24 hours. Zy Chrysler just had a couple guys had cramping issues. Zy was one. There was also Xavier Scott, Kanena Odalaga, and Josh Geske did. Those guys all had some cramping that took place, so they'll return. We just got to make sure that this week's going to be even hotter than it was before. So got some encouraging news from Matt Bailey. He had a second wave of tests, and all very, very positive, so he's progressing even further this week than we had hoped. So really excited about him. If not this week, next week, I think we feel pretty good about. And then the other guy, Zeke Holmes, we're moving him through fall camp. He's come back off the ACL, had some complications that just were a lot of different things. Had a back, had another knee that were just minor issues, but compounded. So we kind of just took a couple week window to set him down and let him rehab and focus. So we did that. We turned the page quickly on Sunday. We came in the building as coaches, graded it, brought our players in late afternoon, did a good about 90-minute film session on Toledo. A lot of really, I don't know how many times I said this through phone calls or text, people reaching out to me. Obviously gave a lot of credit to Toledo after the game, and that still holds true today. But there were enough things for us, on all 3 phases of the game that let us win the game, but a lot of things that we can go correct. I think, in my 30 years in coaching, 15 years as a head coach, the best environment for a Sunday or the day after a game is to have a game that you win, but do enough things that you need to correct so they have a great frame of mind. And I thought our guys really bought into that. Had a lot of individual today with no class, right? We've been able to have some guys through the building, brought some guys in. Hey, this is where I think you are. This is where I think you can go. Just a lot of really good conversations. I think for us, a lot of people always talk about the growth from game 1 to game 2 with players. I think it can really happen for coaches that haven't worked together. So to have the 4 new coaches play the way they did, I told Dish to have a field goal game-winning execution as a first-year special teams coordinator was pretty cool. I thought we handled that moment very well. So I thought Dish and what we brought him here to do as tight ends, Tip played really well. Also on the offensive side of the ball, Thad Ward, 2 running backs come in and do what we did, but also just a lot of other things that he's done in the building jumped out before that game, and couldn't be more excited about those 2 guys. Charlie Bullen, our outside linebacker play, the 3 guys that played the most amount of reps were pretty impressive. Alec Bryan played his most complete, really good game overall. Seth and Gabe continued to be pretty impressive and like where they're at. So he had a tremendous, and then Antonio Fenellis, we were thin a little bit at corner, especially when T. Strain went down. I thought he handled the moment, moved guys around, and did a really good job. Aaron in his first role, obviously he had the bowl game, but this was his first opener as a D coordinator. I thought he really adjusted and handled the second half very well. Overall, to come into a halftime where we had 9 penalties for 90 yards and only have 1 in the second half, I think they hurt us. I know I said some things, I know others did as well, so that part was really encouraging. And then just the way we started the game offensively and the way we ended it offensively speaks volumes of where I think that unit can go. And defense, a lot of the things we did were self-inflicted. I mean, they were a very good team and a lot of talent, but excited where they can go. So we turned the page and jumped into our Kansas prep. Lance and I have known each other a long time. A lot of you really know that story. He first started off in Wisconsin at a Division III level, and everywhere Lance has gone, they've always won, and it's just super important to realize like he is a solid fundamental coach, offense, defense, special teams. Has surrounded himself with coaches that have been with him a long time. They believe in their system, they believe in what they do, and it's proven to be successful everywhere he's been. So a tremendous challenge on Friday. Super excited to get there and see where we're at, and be a part of one of our things we've talked to our players about is just embrace the whole travel experience from beginning to end, right? So we're going to go on the road the first time together, 74 players, a group of coaches and support staff. We'll fly over to Lawrence. I'm sure they'll have a great crowd. I know it's something that they've been aiming towards and talking about for a long time, so we're excited about the opportunity.
What do you see from the rushing defense on the game film, and maybe some things you'd like to get cleaned up before Friday night?
Yeah, I think overall in defense, like I said a minute ago, there was definitely enough things that we did well to win the game, but things we got to do better. They have a little bit different approach. Their quarterback obviously accounted for a large amount of their rushing runs. He had 20 runs on the day. I think about 15 of those were self-designed runs that gave him the ball and featured it. So anytime that you have a game, whether success or failure, you got to learn from it equally, and I think our guys will do that.
Put a couple people in new spots or new faces on the offensive line. What did you see from that group, and what's kind of next for them?
This past weekend? Yeah. Geske started guard, took reps at tackle. It was his first start. I think he would be the first to tell you that, obviously we got through the game and were able to win it, but I know he wants to get better. At right tackle, Zai had started for the first time at right tackle, played, obviously guard for us last year and an all Big Ten player, but he'd really been limited on amount of practice time, and I think that showed in the game. So those 2 guys in particular, I think Isaiah and Julian probably played about where we thought they were, and I think Josh Kreutz really handled the game, the composure, the moments he was in, had no issues with operations or snaps or anything. So he continues to be a very impressive player, and I think a guy that will continue to move forward. We also got Jordan Slaughter in there. I think Jordan just continues to be very impressive, the amount of roles that he fills, snapping the ball better than ever. So another guy for us, a valuable reps at center. And then 2 guys, Zach Barliv, Hunter Whiteneck, and Brandon Henderson got in the game as well in limited capacities. But to have those guys continue to come along this week will be a big part.
What's your anything you can take from this past Saturday with Finn that you can translate to what you're going to see quarterback-wise with whoever they put out there?
Yeah, well, Finn is, really in my 3 years of here, like I literally said this in January when we started watching film from a year ago, like probably one of the more dynamic, explosive playmakers that we've ever faced at the quarterback position, regardless of who we were seeing or what time of the season. He's just a very dynamic player. Really had a great amount of respect going into the game, probably even bigger respect on the back end. I grabbed him after the game. and just said, hey, go win them all, because I think they with his skill set and what they have and the way they're coached, that's a very real thing for them to do. I think his skill set is unique to him, but there will be things that, this week, depending on who we see at quarterback, I just know their quarterback and the way he moves, whichever quarterback they play or roll with, the ability for them to run and create plays with their athleticism is real with all of them. So there'll be a little bit of carryover, probably not the same, but some.
Brett, what's the conversations like with penalties, especially those two that changed the game with the taunting and then the roughing the passer?
Yeah. Well, some conversations can be repeated, right? Especially on TV. But I would say that in general, I think they hurt us, right? There was 9 penalties in the first half and 1 in the second half. I believe at halftime they had 4 penalties for 20 yards. We had 9 for 90, and 4 defensive penalties, indirectly or directly resulted in 20 points that were scored. So one of the things I preach, and harp on relentlessly is more games are lost than won, and those come from penalties, turnovers, and mental errors. And I think our guys hear us, and they hurt us at half, right? That's a good thing. If it was the other way, or if it was balanced, you would be concerned. But I think a little bit of anytime you're in that first game, and then the way those fouls occurred, right? A couple of them were post snap, but a lot of them are great learning experiences for not just the guys that committed them, but other guys as well.
Last year you went on the road, went at some tough places.
Mm-hmm.
So how much does that carry over this year going forward?
Well, I would say Kansas has targeted this game for a long time, right? So they had their game originally scheduled for Thursday against Missouri State. When we agreed to play this game on Friday, they moved their game to Friday, so it's not as big a break, or they didn't gain 2 days of advantage of prep for us, right? So I know they got new jerseys, from 1941 that they're going to debut. So there's a lot of thought that has gone into this game, and I think that's awesome. I think that's what college football is all about. And I think that, for our guys, one of the things we learned that first year going to Penn State, like we went into an environment with 110,000. We knew that we were going to be the only ones there cheering for Illinois. So other than a few other diehards, but I think our guys in particular, with the attitude that we preach, the mentality of being an underdog with a chip on your shoulder, this actually plays into our. And I've been told too that we are the underdog. So I think there's a lot of different things that we can play to that we really embrace.
The delay of game penalty. Just curious as to I saw you had a conversation with the official about this. When they make a change, you can make a defensive change.
Yeah.
Your guy was coming off and they snap, or at least it's going to be. What are the rules on what are the officials guide you?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different ways. Everybody the standard way is like when an offense is on the field and one of their guys that's a normal substitution. You'll see the white hat, what we call the cross, right? So he'll go like this, and then once he turns and faces our sideline, we have 3 seconds to initiate a substitution. Toledo, as most teams, right, they have a planned rotation that I think their coaches are designed to do, right? Like they know, I'm going to get this guy out. Like we have 3 receivers that, in my opinion, are playing as good at football as I've ever played since I've been here with those 3 guys, Isaiah Williams, Casey Washington, and Pat Bryant. When we sub, we really don't want to bring all 3 of those guys out, so we'll periodically sub, hey, first chance we can, let's get Casey out. Let's get Pat out next play. So that happened a lot of times on Saturday where a wide receiver go 1 for 1, and then the OC or the person that's calling the plays would then, a couple seconds later, send in a tight end for a wideout, and they literally would go from what we call 11 personnel to 12 personnel. Well, when that happens, then we're entitled to sub again. And sometimes because the white hat might be facing us, he doesn't see the initial second substitution. I see it, right? So we sub, and that was the moment of Jesus we had a conversation about, right? Because I knew that we had a second sub, and we should be entitled to do that. So a lot of times, just from game 1 to game 2, a lot of people get better, and I think that's one. That's for us. We really take a lot of preparation to make that right, and it's something that we put an emphasis on, and it's important to us. The other thing that comes a factor, they had a couple delay of games because they couldn't get snapped by the time we subbed, and obviously that's something that's a big part of the game.
Yeah, that was the question. Sorry, just
Yeah.
to clarify.
So when they subbed, we put Denzel back. We were trying to put another player back out there, and they didn't allow
You
it.
have a certain amount of time. So say you're replacing the guy on the far end, left outside linebacker. He has to get off. Like, is there hey, he's got 7 seconds, or they're snapping? Like, how do the officials handle that?
Yeah, I think that as long as you're diligent in your process, right? And again, it's Robert, as a fellow big man, I hope you appreciate, right? Like, some people can move faster than others, right? So I just said, if we're going to sub in a DB, he's going to move at a different place than a guy, especially like it's. I have fun with it, I joke with it, and I had tried to make light of it, right? These guys weigh 320 pounds. It's the fourth quarter, and it's their 72nd snap. They're not going to move the same way they did on their 22nd snap in the middle of the second quarter, right? And it's just common sense, but it's a reality of it. So, again, as long as we all get better, like everybody always says, how do you define success? I think as a whole, we all just need to get better, everybody involved in game day, and I think that will be a point of emphasis for me. And the good news is we have a Big Ten crew again. So we were a home game, obviously had a Big Ten crew, but this road game, we get a Big Ten crew going to Kansas as well.
Coach Lance Leopold seems to turn things around in just a few short seasons there. From your perspective, what's kind of been the key for him, and what's the identity that he's kind of established there?
I don't. Last thing I'm going to do is speak for Lance. Lance, I think the wins speak for itself. Obviously, last year they started off 5-0, right? And they have a player that's voted on before the season as the Big 12 Player of the Year, right? Offensively, it's very apparent that his coaching style, philosophy, overall program philosophy has continued to show up more and more every year. And I got to believe this year will be another step in that same direction. Lance and I both saw each other at the draft, right? In Kansas City, like they had a player there, we had a player there, and for me, like I gravitate. Lance and I have always known each other from the time he spent as a head coach there, but like I just naturally like people that are at programs maybe that maybe haven't been the blue bloods, right? I know they're a blue blood in basketball, right, but not in football, I would think. And what he's done is just speaks volumes about what an effect a head coach can have with the people he brings in, the players he brings in, the people that they're around. And I'll give a lot of credit to the people that make those hires, right? Like I think in college football, you saw it this weekend. There's a lot of probably games that went the way you thought they were going to go, but then sometimes things don't go as planned. You see head coaches make comments, and sometimes they don't happen the way people foresee them to be. I've never really been at a program that the outside world just taps you on the head and said you're going to be good, right? So it's fun for guys that are in positions like what we took over here in Illinois, that were in a place that you think you can have success, and when you build it and you see it come to life, it's really a lot of great respect, and that's what I see with Lance.
What can a game like that, big picture, do for Luke Altmaier to get that first one under his belt and play the way that he did?
Yeah, you guys have gotten to know Luke a little bit. You obviously get to know him a little bit more now. Luke's the same guy every day. Like I always say, like one of the greatest things you can bring to an organization is consistency. Whatever powers that be that brought me here, right? Obviously, Josh and administration. Like one thing I try to be is consistently the same person every day. Like so people know how to. Like I'll throw curveballs and we'll react in different ways. But I think when you're building a successful organization from players and people, coaches, administration, if you can be the same person every day, and that's what like Luke from January to where we are now. I got a couple texts from the place he had been previously. After a game where people were like, oh, it's great to see Luke have success. I think anywhere Luke has gone, people are a fan of Luke Altmaier, right? And it's easy to see why. He does things the right way. Obviously a young man of tremendous faith, but I think our players probably on Sunday realized now they got a tough guy as well, right? Like he hadn't really been able to show that because we don't let people hit him. But I mean, that last throw was like literally in the face of a guy that had beat the tackle on an inside spin move, and he delivered a strike. Casey went up and made a play. But then to go back down there and have that composure, and there at the end, I don't know if anybody realizes how enjoyable it is to be in that moment and call an end of game scenario the way that you see it happen and the way that you have seen it happen in your mind. Our players would tell you we probably went through end of half, end of game scenarios as much as anybody that's in our program, but they only know because they only know what they've been here. But like it's something I really believe in. So we probably every other day either work of end of half, end of game for 26 practices, right? And to get there at the end, to know we have 2 timeouts, we have a makeable field goal, to get the ball centered, to take a timeout when we know that if we botch a snap or we have anything jump, go off sides, to execute a winning field goal. The last thing I was worried about was Caleb Griffin making it. I knew Caleb was going to make it. I just want to make sure our protection, our snap, and our hold was there. And to have that feeling as a head coach is very empowering. And now to know that you have a quarterback that kind of understands what's expected of that position and can fulfill it, that's a very, very big thing.
When you first saw him, Luke Altmaier, on tape, what jumped out? Was there one thing you thought, oh, that's my guy?
Yeah, I would say a couple things jump out. Like he was very creative in bad moments, right? Like, so one of the things that I think define a quarterback, and we saw this on Saturday with number 7, right, was sometimes a quarterback is given what we think is the answer to the test, and the test has changed, right? And all of a sudden the answer that he thought was going to be there isn't there. And if you can make something of nothing, that's really a special trait. And he did that. In particular, I know I was watching some bull reps where he got thrust in the middle of the game, and he stepped up, avoided a rush, and threw a touchdown pass, which was pretty incredible. And then just really as you watch the volume of tape, his high school tape, his touch on the ball is very special. Like, I think he's got the ability to make all 3 throws. Like I always say, the deep ball, the short ball, and the touch pass. And he really has that capabilities. But now after being through one game with him, he's got some intangibles he didn't know existed. And I think that part's really cool. And now to have your teammates see that, I think is pretty unique.
7 years that he was at in the 7 years he was at Whitewater, were you guys able ever to chop it up when you were in Madison? Or?
Oh yeah. He was actually a GA at Wisconsin before I was there, and connected to the program. Yeah. We've been really close since that time when we were together at Wisconsin. When he took the job at Buffalo, we actually crossed paths because he hadn't been on that level. So we've crossed paths many times, and then really, whenever, I've even though we knew this day was coming since I came here and since he was there, we've literally exchanged text messages, phone calls. Like, I always congratulate him on things, and just a great deal of respect for who they are, what they are, and his coaches. Right? Like, I think it's very, very easy to see. You can have coaches that have great head coaching ability, but sometimes if they're not surrounded by the right people, things don't go well. And he's done an incredible job of surrounding himself with really good people, and it shows in what they do.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.